At my pet hamster's first birthday party, I questioned my entire worldview. I was 11 years old, handing my hamster, Basil, a tiny slice of carrot cake I'd made for him. He held it in his paws and tucked in like he'd been waiting all year for his favorite treat. As we're having this little celebration, I could smell my favorite treat being cooked downstairs: roast chicken. It occurred to me that Basil and the chicken had a lot in common: eyes, a heartbeat, favorite foods. But one of them got dessert and the other became dinner. I realized I was drawing an arbitrary line between animals I cared about and animals I ate. That's a lot to process over birthday cake. So I didn't. I put it out of my mind, went downstairs, and ate dinner. But every bite came with a mental image of Basil judging me. In my head, I reassured him, relax. Food animals are different. They're not the same as you. That comforted me enough to finish my meal. Back upstairs, Basil poked his head out of his little house, and the guilt hit me so hard I could barely sleep that night. The next morning, I marched into the school library to fact-check my hamster-induced moral crisis. This was the 90s, so my search engine was a very patient librarian. I was hoping she'd hand me a book titled "Chickens, Basically Vegetables with Feathers." No such luck. I soon learned chickens can count. They feel pain. They can even play tricks on each other. Basil couldn't even count to 1, and I'd never think of eating him. So at age 11, I made my first big moral decision. I stopped eating animals. Since Basil's birthday, I'd been living with dissonance, caring about my pet, but eating others like him. As soon as my food choices matched what I believed, that tension eased. Suddenly, meals weren't fraught with guilt. They were opportunities to become the kind of person I wanted to be. Even though not all of us have been thrown into a moral panic by a childhood pet, we all have space between our deeply held values and the way we actually act. We value being law-abiding citizens, but we jaywalk. We might value deep work, but we check our email 47 times an hour. We want to act in line with what we believe, but sometimes it's really hard. And because it's hard, we talk ourselves out of what's right in front of us, just like I did when I told myself, chickens don't really feel pain. It's amazing how good our brains are at easing guilt, or at least some of it. I chose to be vegetarian so I could hang out with my pet hamster guilt-free, and it worked for years. Until when I was 16, I watched a documentary on animal agriculture. It showed how meat, dairy, and eggs are all part of the same system I thought I'd opted out of when I went vegetarian. The dairy segment hit me the hardest. I grew up believing cows just spontaneously make milk. But of course, that's not true. They have to be pregnant first. The documentary showed me that dairy cows are kept in a near constant cycle of pregnancy and lactation, and their calves are typically taken away within hours of their birth. Female calves enter the same dairy system, and males are usually raised for veal or beef. When a dairy cow's milk production slows down, she too is slaughtered for meat. My heart broke. All this for something to pour onto my cereal that I could easily replace with a plant-based version? That's why at age 16, I went fully vegan, no animal products. This was not the trendiest move as a teenager. While my friends were experimenting with questionable hairstyles, I was experimenting with soy cheese and tofurkey. I felt good about this decision, but part of me panicked. What would this mean for the traditional foods I grew up with? Latvian saffron bread brushed with egg wash, German fudge made with cream, milk chocolate holiday treats. When I went vegan, I worried I'd lose not just those foods, but a link to my family's culture and traditions. Luckily, my mom was ready to get creative. She started making saffron bread with soy milk and fudge with coconut cream. I started my lifelong love affair with dark chocolate. That's when I realized our traditions weren't really about food itself. They were about what food represented. Connection, being together. I still had that. And the Christmas fudge tasted even more delicious with coconut cream. My values didn't erase our traditions. They expanded them. In my 20s, several relatives received tough health diagnoses. This was my wake-up call to start investing in my own health. I started taking strength training seriously, but I worried I'd have to choose between my ethics and my health goals. Could I build muscle and reduce my risk for chronic diseases without eating animal products? Down the research spiral I went, thankfully this time aided by the internet's unlimited access to scientific journals. I learned that a whole food-based vegan diet is associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Not only that, but it absolutely could fuel the active lifestyle I wanted. Thanks to the many vegan protein sources out there, I could fuel the muscle gain I'd need to do a ridiculous number of chin-ups and carry all my groceries in one trip well into old age. I went vegan for ethical reasons, but apparently my younger self had also set me up for health benefits. By my early 30s, I'd started thinking more about our planet. I noticed more frequent heat domes, droughts ruining crops across the country, and wildfires destroying entire towns. My trusty research showed me that this was all intensified by excess greenhouse gas emissions. So I made a list of actions to shrink my carbon footprint. Switching to an electric vehicle, not without an extra $80,000 in my pocket. Eating locally, turns out that matters much less than what I ate. One of the most effective actions on that list was surprisingly simple: eating fewer animal products and more plants. Several studies show that vegan diets produce about 50% fewer emissions than average omnivorous diets. Once again, my younger self had accidentally set me up to live my values. This year, I'm turning 40, which means I've been vegan for well over half my life, all thanks to a surprisingly influential hamster birthday party. I used to think veganism meant kale-infused bran muffins that doubled as hockey pucks. But I'm actually eating sushi, pad thai, enchiladas, chocolate cake. Obviously, a life of deprivation. I had moments of doubt along my journey. I worried that living in line with my values would mean missing out on taste, family connection, the raw muscle gains required to bench press all 3 family cats. In reality, it was the exact opposite. My almost 30-year journey started with a hamster. Let's be real, yours probably won't. Maybe it'll be a cat or a dog you adore, or your health, or the planet. Every time I explored that unsettling mismatch between my beliefs and my actions, my world expanded. If you feel that same tug from your values, follow it. Take small steps. Try an oat milk latte. Make a bean burrito. Order the chickpea curry. Start your love affair with dark chocolate. Join me here, choosing an abundant life guided by your values, one bite at a time. Thank you.